Formula One's latest round of musical chairs has left Renault with a seat to fill for 2021, and it didn't take long for Fernando Alonso to be linked to the drive. That was inevitable given his history with the team and the fact that he's out of F1 but has never declared himself retired. Alonso remains keen to get back onto the grid, but how sensible would it be to return to Renault for a third time? Alonso's former boss at McLaren, Zak Brown, says the move is a no-brainer from Renault's perspective, but less straightforward for Alonso, so we're going to lay out the pros and cons for both sides. Let us know in the comments if you think Alonso should go back, or who else you think Renault should consider, and remember to give this video a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Even as Alonso was toiling with McLaren before leaving F1, his speed was never in doubt. He's still regarded as one of F1's absolute top-line drivers. He's got a wide operating window, and perhaps crucially for Renault, his McLaren years have given him experience of getting the best out of cars that can't fight for wins. His performances in early 2018, before McLaren fell way off the midfield pace, showed he is capable of dragging the absolute maximum points haul from an average car. Daniel Ricciardo deciding to give up on his Renault career gamble before his second season even started is a major vote of no confidence in the French manufacturer's bid to become a top team again. Alonso coming in to fill his shoes would repair any damage to morale in the team and could help convince Renault's board that the F1 project is still worth backing. Alonso is still one of the biggest names in F1 even while he's sat on the sidelines. It would be a major get for Renault, which would make the team more attractive to existing and potential sponsors. This could be particularly important as the only way Renault would likely be able to sign Alonso is if his arrival brings an influx of cash from new backers. Renault is proud of its F1 heritage, and Alonso's first stint with the team was its absolute peak. As the driver market rumours kicked into overdrive, Renault cheekily reminded everyone of this by sharing some wallpaper images of Alonso on its Twitter account, which was a brilliant piece of mischief. History can be a burden as well, and rekindling old relationships is always a gamble. Renault's mission to become a race-winning force in F1 again has veered drastically off course of late, so a strong character like Alonso would bring direction and focus back at a time when the team needs it most. This would require Alonso to be motivated for such a challenge, but he's smart enough to realise that if he signs for Renault, he's not going to be fighting for victories immediately. So if he returns, he'll surely consider it his mission to drag the team back up the order. One of the things McLaren realised when it pressed on without Alonso in 2019 was the amount of pressure an established superstar brings to a team trying to find its way in the midfield. Alonso has sky-high expectations and he's not afraid of voicing when he doesn't feel those are being met. If Renault was in touching distance of the top teams, he could be the final piece in the puzzle, but in its current situation, adding Alonso into the mix would just increase the pressure on a team that has already fallen off track. Alonso was cleared of any involvement or even knowledge of the crash scandal that helped him to the first win of his second stint with Renault, but that achievement is still tainted. Renault has left F1 and come back in the years since, with different management in place, but would Alonso's return bring with it the ghosts of a controversy it wants to leave in the past? One of the reasons Alonso has failed to land another drive at a top team is the wariness they have about his impact behind the scenes. Red Bull team boss Christian Horner said he would never sign Alonso because he causes chaos wherever he goes. McLaren tied itself in knots at times as it obsessed over keeping Alonso happy, and it clearly benefited in 2019 from removing the distractions that come with him. The political landscape of any manufacturer-owned F1 team can be complex at the best of times, so adding someone with star power and the influence of Alonso could be to the detriment of the race team. Abiteboul has called for a more rational approach to driver salaries to help the sustainability of teams, which suggests Renault is unlikely to splash the cash to find a replacement for Ricciardo, who it signed on big money. Renault might have learned the hard way that huge driver salaries reduce the amount it can spend on car development. An Alonso deal would either require an additional big check from the parent company, or the Spaniard to come with sponsors that would help cover those costs. Would that make him a pay driver? Driver salaries won't be included in F1's upcoming financial restrictions, so perhaps once Renault has curbed its spending elsewhere to fit with the new rules, it might have a bit left over for a star driver. In Esteban Ocon, Renault has a potential star on its books already, and bringing Alonso in could derail Ocon's development into a lead driver. If it went well, Alonso and Ocon would be a formidable partnership. But Ocon is fast enough that there could easily be a repeat of the tension caused at McLaren in 2007 by Lewis Hamilton's speed as a rookie. Alonso likes to have a team built around him, and Ocon has shown in run-ins with Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen that he's not afraid to stand up for himself. Alonso would be 39 by the time he returned to the grid if he joins Renault for 2021. The earliest he could hope to have a chance of winning races would be a year later, and that's if Renault nails the rule changes. But a driver over 40 hasn't won a Grand Prix since Nigel Mansell did it in 1994. Zak Brown, who has the most recent first-hand experience at McLaren of Alonso's desire to drive a top car rather than wait for a midfield team to break into the top tier, questioned if Alonso has the appetite for a long-term project. Brown suspects Alonso would want a race-winning car if he's to come back in 2021. At Renault, Alonso would have to see the appeal of being part of the journey to the top, on the understanding that he might not still be racing in F1 when his influence really starts to bear fruit. Alonso will have been out of F1 for 2 years by the start of next season, and Michael Schumacher and Kimi Räikkönen have both shown how difficult it can be to rediscover the old magic after a break. Alonso has continued to compete at a high level, so he should be sharp, but with teams agreeing 2021 will feature hardly any pre-season running, he'll have very little chance to re-acclimatise to driving an F1 car in anger. Renault has its own driver academy that is yet to propel anyone to F1. Abiteboul said the goal of the academy was to get a graduate onto the grid by 2021, and conveniently Renault now has a space in its lineup. With no customer teams on its books once McLaren jumps ship to Mercedes next year, Renault doesn't have anywhere else to place one of its protégés. Signing Alonso would close the door to its academy and bring into question the time, money and effort that has gone into that scheme so far. Those are our pros and cons for Renault and Alonso. Let us know in the comments who you think the team should sign to replace Ricciardo. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel.